R.I.P. to Dom, first of all.
Man.
And foremost. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Phat Pharm. Now, you were the designer of Phat Pharm. You plugged in with Russell, right?
Because of Dom.
Because of Dom,
Yeah.
right? This is around the time that I started to get to know you.
Yeah.
And it was like, I remember being very happy that my friend was doing this work. But then there was like this big blow up at Phat Pharm and you were no longer there.
Because I was young and an asshole.
What happened?
Backtrack. So Dom and I hung out tough. Like that was my main dude. And he was in a group called Key West. So it was him and Kyle West. And Kyle was producing all the Albie Shore stuff.
Okay.
And Dom was doing a lot of street consulting for Andre Harrell, rest in peace.
Rest in peace to Andre. Champagne and Bubbly.
Word.
We just saw him yesterday.
So Dom's actually the dude that put the Versace shades on Biggie. True story. Yeah, because he was exotic Dom. Like he would have like wild shit. Like we were all still rocking Low and Timberland, and Dom would have like a Gaultier sweater and like Versace, and like he'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to a Valentino sample sale," and we'd be like, "Fuck is that?"
Right.
Like, and so I have to give a lot of my like style credit to Dom. Dom and Heather Worley, a woman I dated in high school, but So Dom is like going to the parties and, you know, he's like rubbing elbows with everybody. And one day...
This is around the time I was working for Jessica. So I remember seeing Dom as a huge presence at this.
Yeah, and he just had that air about him, right? He was boxing and shit, like on top of his shit. So Dom, we would always talk about like the phenomenon of Low, right? And how there were, Polo Ralph Lauren. And how there were low lives, and there was a whole culture built around people like that collected Ralph Lauren, and how interesting it was that the target demographic was upper middle class and upper class white America, right? But in our lens, living in the city, it was black, brown, and yellow people consuming and or liberating.
That's right.
And so
that's right. That's right. Rushing the low mansion.
Right. So
boosting culture.
We were like, how cool would it be if somebody like made a brand for the city that lived in that space? And it was also the advent of J. Crew. J. Crew was still like a mail order catalog. They didn't have stores yet. And one day he hit me up and he was like, yo, I was at this party last night and I ran into Russell and he wants to start a brand and he wants to call it Phat. And I was like, well, that's dumb. It's like, you might as well call it Fresh or Dope or, you know, whatever the new colloquial term was. He's like, he needs a designer. You should do it. And I was like, I have ideas, but I don't know how to design clothes. So I hit up Paul Middleman and asked him to look at some of it. He was in FIT at the time. And he was working for Stussy, but he was at FIT. And his aunt and my mom were best friends. Karen and his aunt Karen and my mom were like really tight. So Dom and I like went to this Jamaican restaurant on Flatbush at 4th. I forgot, I think it's called like Sunsplash or something like that.
Flatbush and 4th. Wow.
It's not there anymore.
Right.
And we sat and he was like, you're going to draw this line. Like he made me do it. Like he was like, you're going to draw Phat. And I was like, we should call it Phat Pharm because Polo Country had just started and it was before Double RL. It's a precursor to Double RL. And so it had a green label and it was like... It just looked cool. It was like more like Double RL-ish. Right. And that's a horrible way to describe it. But anyway, we drew Phat Pharm, or I drew Phat Pharm. And Dom and I just ideated for like 2 hours in this Jamaican restaurant. And then the next day we brought it to Russell and he's like, I love it. You're the guy. And I was like, what? I'm a high school dropout. I've never been to like design school. So they hired a bunch of people that were technical designers. And then I was like, well, I barely know how to use a laptop or a computer. Laptops barely existed at the time. This is 91, 92. So I was like, we need a graphic artist and we need somebody that knows the fashion industry. So Paul Middleman had his dad, do you remember Pandemonium Uptown? So Paul's dad grew up or was partners or crew with the dudes that had started Unique
Okay.
and the dudes that had started Canal Jean and Antique Boutique. Like
I
that was a
remember you
whole
making
like
Antique Boutique and Canal G, and I was living in those spots.
yeah, no doubt. So that was all the same crew of people. So Ron Middleman made a store uptown called Pandemonium, but it's the same crew. It'd be like me, you, and John, and Yassine, and any adjacent crew. It was like, yo, I'm gonna do my thing. And Paul grew up in that space, right? So he knew. So I was like, we should hire Paul. So Paul kind of became the art director, kind of the guy that knew how to speak the language of apparel, but was still kind of working with Stussy. And then Eli. And Eli was a graphic artist. And that's the advent of Phat Pharm. And then they it was fucked up because Dom's position was supposed to be the marketing director, and Russell fucked him out of that. And I'm forever bitter about that.
Now, did you leave Phat Pharm before Baby Phat?
No, I came up with the name.
Okay, so you came up with Baby Phat.
Which is fucked up.
Right.
Like what's her face?
You know, Baby Phat
like,
is back.
Yeah.
It's not fully.
What's old girl's name? She's like, I invented
Kamar.
that in a dream. Like,
Kamar.
no,
She had a dream about
that's
Alyasha's.
cool. That's all right.
Hilarious.
It's cool.
What we done started. Look at what we done started. This the people party. When opportunity knocking, then young nigga move that door. Whoa, get your foot stuck in it, call me young, go get it. Now you can't fuck with it, might as well roll with it.